You know what nobody tells you when you start eating nothing but meat? Your bathroom schedule becomes, let's say, creative. Some people swear they feel lighter and less bloated, like they just discovered a hidden cheat code. Others, let's just say their toilet starts holding grudges. That's one of the very first things the carnivore diet does to your body. And it's not even the weirdest part. Because right after your gut starts acting funny, something else happens. The scale drops. Fast. But it's not exactly what you think it is. So what is this thing really? At its core, the carnivore diet is about eating only animal foods. Meat, fish, eggs, and sometimes dairy if you're not too strict. That's it. No plants, no carbs, bread, gone. Veggies? Nope. Even fruit gets the boot. If keto is the neighbor who still sneaks in avocados and cauliflower rice, carnivore is the grumpy uncle who says, nah, we're sticking to steak and bacon. And the second you cut out everything green, your body reacts way faster than you would expect. That first week is where things get interesting. The scale usually drops fast, sometimes a couple of kilos in just a few days. Most of that is water leaving your body, since carbs normally store water in your muscles. Take the carbs away, and suddenly you're not carrying all that extra around. Your face looks a little leaner, your stomach feels flatter, and you start thinking this is going to be a breeze. Then the crash shows up. Around day 3 or 4, energy dips, your head feels heavy, and simple things like climbing stairs or holding a conversation feel harder than usual. That's your body adjusting to the fact that its usual fuel, sugar, isn't coming anymore. It's like a factory shutting down one line of production while trying to fire up a whole new one. Those few days feel rough for a lot of people, and the nickname keto flu fits. It really does feel like being sick. Digestion also changes right away. Some people get relief from bloating and stomach pain almost immediately. Others spend the first week wondering if they'll ever have a normal bathroom trip again. Fiber is gone, gut bacteria shift, and your system needs time to figure out how to run on a meat-only diet. By the end of the week, cravings start to calm down. Normally, your brain shouts for snacks every few hours. On carnivore, those alarms start going quiet. You finish a steak and you're good for hours, sometimes half the day. It's strange at first. You are used to needing that cookie at 3 p.m., but suddenly you realize you're not hungry. And that's the sign your body is switching gears, moving from running on carbs to running on fat. That change in appetite is what sets you up for the next stage. Actual fat loss. Once you push past that first week, things start shifting from water loss into real fat loss. The reason comes down to hormones. When you're not eating carbs, your insulin levels stay low. Low insulin basically tells your body, stop storing energy and start burning it. And with nothing else to pull from, it goes straight to your fat stores. That's why so many people notice fat coming off in a steady way after those first few days. Not the crash diet, yo-yo kind of loss, but a more consistent burn. And because you're eating mostly protein and fat, you feel full for a long time. It's actually hard to overeat steak the same way you would overeat chips or cookies. You finish a steak, and your brain and stomach are on the same page. We are done here. That built-in satiety is one of the biggest reasons people naturally cut calories without even trying. The other interesting part is how your relationship with hunger changes. On a regular diet, hunger feels urgent. Like if you don't eat soon, you're going to crash. On carnivore, hunger feels quieter, more like a nudge than a scream. That makes it easier to go longer between meals without snacking, which is another reason fat loss can accelerate. Now, it's not all endless progress. At some point, most people hit a plateau. The dramatic early drops slow down and fat loss settles into a more normal pace. It doesn't mean that you are failing. It's just your body finding balance. In fact, plateaus are common in any weight loss approach, carnivore included. The difference here is that cravings usually stay low, which makes it easier to keep going instead of giving up. And this isn't only about the number on the scale. Many people notice their body composition changing. They look leaner, muscles show more, clothes fit differently, even if the scale isn't moving as quickly. That's because the high protein intake protects your muscle, so most of the weight you're losing is fat, not muscle mass. The shift in fat burning is powerful, but it doesn't stop with the body. The same process that's changing your waistline is also changing how your brain runs. Once your body figures out how to burn fat for fuel, your brain gets in on the action. Instead of running on glucose, it starts using ketones, which are made from fat. For a lot of people, this switch feels like trading in an old laptop for a brand new one. Suddenly there are fewer energy crashes, focus feels sharper, and that sluggish afternoon wall just isn't there anymore. It doesn't happen instantly though. In the early days, brain fog is common. Concentration feels harder, memory feels fuzzy, and some people even describe it as trying to think through mud. That's your brain in the awkward transition stage, adjusting to its new fuel. Once the adaptation kicks in, that fog usually lifts, and what's left is steady energy that doesn't rely on constant snacking or drinking coffee. This is one of the biggest reasons people stick with carnivore longer than they expected. They might have started for weight loss, but then they notice they can work longer, train harder, or simply feel more alert without the roller coaster of highs and lows. It's a subtle shift, but it adds up fast in daily life. Of course, while your brain might be loving this steady fuel, your gut doesn't always celebrate the changes quite as much. Now let's talk about digestion, because this is where carnivore throws a real curveball. For some people, the change is immediate relief. Bloating vanishes, stomach cramps disappear, and that constant feeling that something is off in their gut finally calms down. People with IBS often report that their symptoms ease up almost overnight once plants are out of the picture. It sounds counterintuitive, but without the fiber and plant compounds that used to irritate their system, the gut simply stops fighting back. On the other side, plenty of people run into bathroom trouble. Without fiber, the usual bulk that helps things move along isn't there anymore. Some find themselves constipated, others swing the other direction and spend the first couple of weeks running to the bathroom more than they would like. Your microbiome, those trillions of bacteria that thrive on plant fiber, also starts to shift, because the food they normally eat is gone. That can bring its own set of adjustments, from gas to changes in stool frequency. Science hasn't given us a clear verdict yet. There is evidence that fiber supports a healthy gut microbiome and colon health, but there's also a growing number of people saying they feel better without it. Carnivore seems to act like a reset button for some, and like pulling the rug out from under others. And that's really the catch here. Digestion on carnivore is unpredictable. Two people can eat the same steak and eggs routine, and one feels better than ever, while the other is googling how to fix constipation on a meat-only diet. What is less certain is how this plays out long-term. If your gut bacteria adapt and shrink down to only the species that thrive on animal foods, is that sustainable over years? Or does it raise risks later down the road? That's a question we don't have solid answers to yet, and it's exactly why next topic gets so controversial: heart health. Because blood tests often change once you go all meat. A lot of people see their triglycerides drop way down, which is usually considered a good sign. HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, often climbs higher too. Both of those shifts point toward better metabolic health. LDL is the wild card. For some, it stays the same. For others, it shoots up. And here's the tricky part. Researchers don't fully agree on what that means in the context of low carb or carnivore diets. Some say that high LDL is always a red flag. Others argue that if triglycerides are low and HDL is strong, the picture might not be as negative as it looks on the surface. That uncertainty is why most doctors recommend keeping an eye on your blood work if you're eating this way long term. It's not about ignoring LDL, and it's not about panicking over it either. It's about watching the whole panel and making decisions with the bigger picture in mind. So the verdict right now? Carnivore can improve some markers while raising question marks on others. Until more long-term studies exist, cholesterol remains one of the gray areas of this diet. And speaking of gaps, the next big concern is what happens when you remove plants from your diet entirely. Are you missing out on vitamins and minerals your body actually needs? The first one people bring up is vitamin C. Normally we think of oranges and peppers, not ribeye. But there are small amounts in animal foods, especially in organ meats like liver. Plus, when you're not eating carbs, your body's demand for vitamin C actually drops. That's one reason most carnivores don't end up with scurvy, even though on paper it looks like a real risk. One practical wrinkle here is coffee. A lot of people still drink it on carnivore, and caffeine makes your body burn through vitamin C faster. If you are a daily coffee drinker, that lowers your margin of safety even more. In that case, including liver or considering a small supplement becomes more important. Magnesium and potassium are two other common gaps. Those usually come from leafy greens, beans, and fruit, all off the table. You can get some from eggs, fish, and bone broth, but not always enough. If levels run low, you might notice things like muscle cramps, restless sleep, or dips in energy, and that often traces back to electrolytes. And then there's the kidney angle. A high meat diet can raise uric acid in certain people, which increases the risk of kidney stones if you're already prone to them. Staying hydrated and paying attention to electrolytes makes a big difference here. So does carnivore guarantee deficiencies? Not necessarily. If you are eating a wide mix of animal foods, steak, seafood, eggs, and organs, you can cover most bases. But if your version is just ground beef and salt, that's when problems creep in. It's one of those areas where checking your blood work is worth the effort, just to be sure you're not slowly running on empty. What does this look like not over weeks or months, but over decades? That's where we step into the unknown. The truth is, we don't know for sure. There just aren't long-term modern studies. Most of what we've got are short-term trials, smaller studies, and a whole lot of personal stories. And those stories go both ways. On one side, people say that carnivore cleared up autoimmune flare-ups, gave them steady energy, and reduced inflammation. On the other side, some hit walls, nutrient gaps that sneak up over time, cholesterol panels that keep shifting upward, or digestion that never quite evens out. But this isn't the first time humans have experimented with all meat eating. History gives us examples. Take the Mongol warriors, for instance. Their diet was heavy on meat, milk, and yogurt. Compared to neighboring groups living on grains, the Mongols were noted as healthier, stronger, and able to survive longer stretches without food or water. Even the poorest soldiers living mostly on protein had stronger teeth and bones than their grain-fed enemies. It's not a perfect one-to-one with today's carnivore diet, but it shows humans have thrived on similar eating patterns before. Of course, part of the challenge today is trust. Nutrition studies are expensive, and many people believe industries influence the results. Whether or not that's always true, it does feed skepticism. Which is why the smartest path forward is to gather information from multiple sources: science, history, and personal experience. And then put your body's own feedback first. At the end of the day, you are the one living in it. So the short-term effects, we have a decent picture. The long-term story, still kind of unwritten. And that's what makes the conclusion so important. At the end of the day, carnivore is one of those diets that come with trade-offs. Some people swear by the fat loss, focus, and digestion benefits. Others run into nutrient gaps or numbers on a blood test they don't love. History shows humans have thrived on meat-heavy diets before, but modern science hasn't followed it long enough to give us all the answers. So would I personally suggest carnivore? Yes, I've seen more benefits than drawbacks myself, and honestly, I started it without doing mountains of research just to see how my body reacted. Can I promise it will work for you? No. I wish I could, but like I've said, it's your body, and that feedback matters more than anything else. The only people making promises are usually the ones asking for your credit card details first. Take that for what it is worth. Thank you so much for being here today. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, and I'll see you here next time on Meet Carnivore.